There's a growing backlash from the Jewish community after Rishi Sunak accused Sir Keir Starmer of being a part-timer for saying he won't work after 6 p.m. on a Friday to spend time with his family.
Well, Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting joins us now. Very good morning to you. What do you make of what Rishi Sunak said, what the Conservatives have said? Just to point out, they tweeted yesterday, Keir Starmer said he'd clock off work at 6 p.m. if he became Prime Minister. You deserve better than a part-time Prime Minister. The only way to prevent this is to vote Conservative on Thursday.
Well, firstly, it's just not true. But from the party that delivered the biggest locked-down party in 10 Downing Street, the stench of their lies and hypocrisy is even more overwhelming than the vomit they left in number 10 for the Downing Street cleaners to mop up. And like those Downing Street cleaners, we will mop up the mess the Tories have left our country if people choose change by voting for Labour on Thursday.
That's interesting. So you're raising the issue that you just think that they're lying about it. But we have, this morning, there's a backlash from the Jewish community. And in fact, Lord Mann, the government's independent anti-Semitism advisor, said this is beyond incredulity. Rishi Sunak needs to attend one of our anti-Semitism awareness courses precisely about the issue of Friday nights and the importance of family. But your leader didn't mention that it was for religious reasons in his interview with Chris Evans. So is the anti-Semitism point unfair?
Well, I'd say two things. Firstly, Keir is not clocking off on Fridays. He doesn't clock off on Fridays. He does try to protect Friday evenings for his kids for two reasons. One, he's a great dad. And secondly, his wife's family do have Jewish heritage and they try and keep Fridays special in keeping with their family's culture, faith and practice. And I just think we're 2 days away from an important choice for the country. Labour's talking about our vision for the country and how we turn Britain around. The Tories are slinging mud because it's all they've got left. They can't tell the truth about their record, so they lie about Labour's plans. And that's one of so many reasons why it's time to bring this circus to an end, to get them out of Downing Street and to turn the page on 14 years of Conservative failure, chaos and division.
Wes Streeting, I wonder whether you're being a bit too political about this, you know, lies, slinging mud. Let's actually get to the issue. The issue is that Keir Starmer has a Jewish wife. He said in interviews that they like to keep Friday night dinner and prayers special for their children and Vic's 95-year-old dad. That is something that Conservative campaign advisers and Rishi Sunak would have been aware of, and they chose to make this attack. So when Lord John Mann says there should be an anti-Semitism awareness course of Rishi Sunak, when Jewish News says that they are offended, I mean, aren't they right to be offended? What has gone wrong here? It's not just about lies and playing politics. Isn't it something more serious?
I just think the Conservative Party is morally bankrupt. I think they've did a pretty good job at bankrupting the country too, with the disastrous mini-budget. I'm beyond angry at their behaviour this morning. I just think it is so low. It is so low. And to try and turn being a good dad and caring about your children and caring about their heritage and their family's faith, to try and turn that into some kind of weakness, I think shows they have run out of arguments, run out of steam, and they've actually just run out of morals and principles. And I think it's a disgrace.
Okay.
When Rishi Sunak was a victim of racism just the other day, we didn't hesitate to call it out because it's the right thing to do. And I think Rishi Sunak and the ministers who are out debasing themselves this morning, standing up this pathetic line, need to take a hard look in the mirror.
Are you calling this out as racism?
I think the fact that John Mann, the government's independent anti-Semitism advisor, has said what he said and Jewish News have said what they've said are good reasons for an apology. And I think Rishi Sunak needs to get a grip. For the first time ever, actually, as Conservative leader, he's been, you know, as about as, you know, useful as a chocolate teapot, frankly. I think it's time that Rishi Sunak got a grip, showed some moral fibre and got his party to apologise. I just think this is so unedifying. And I want to talk to you more about how we turn around the NHS crisis. I want to talk about the economy. I want to talk about education. These are the issues.
All right, OK. Junior doctors are, well, they're returning to work, actually. If you win, it becomes your problem. The BMA want pay restoration of around 35%. What would you give them?
Well, we've said very honestly to them this side of the election that 35% is not something we'll be able to afford if we're in government on Friday, if people have made that choice. We'd be willing to negotiate on pay and the wider terms and conditions that junior doctors are suffering under. And I use the term suffering deliberately because the way in which they're treated is disgraceful. I came across one case reported of a junior doctor whose partner had cancer. They had 2 kids and there was no flexibility shown about where that family was placed. That tells me that the NHS is not being a good employer to the junior doctors and we need to deal with those issues. And I'm confident we can find a deal.
They want a pay deal, 35%. What are you going to give them?
Well, not 35%. They know that and they've said they're willing to negotiate and therein lies the opportunity and the hope we can settle. We've seen agreements reached in other parts of the country just last week in Wales. I am confident we can find a deal. It is not going to be easy, any of this, and I don't pretend it's easy. But, you know, you look at the fact we've had more than 1 million operations appointments delayed, cancelled, £3 billion, over £3 billion spent on the cost of these strikes. This is just another reason why we need to bring the clown show to an end and we need a serious government able to move things forward. And Labour stands ready to do that if people give change a chance on Thursday.
One final question on health matters, Wes Streeting. You've talked a lot about the challenges you'll face, the difficulties in the NHS, getting waiting times down. I think a lot of our viewers are very worried about social care. They feel that neither party is talking about it. They feel that a few years ago there was a prospect of £10 billion plus investment with a national insurance tax rise, and that was then opposed by both Labour and the Conservatives. That's gone away. They feel as though in this election nothing is really being talked about social care. You're not going to go into the next government, if you win, with a mandate for big change on social care. People feel like that you've disappointed them.
Well, I'd say a few things. Firstly, in terms of the first steps we'll take on social care, we will get the NHS and social care working more effectively to deal with delayed discharges, because in cities like Leeds, we've seen how the NHS has effectively used its own budgets through social care partners to get people out of hospital beds and either back home or into step-down accommodation, which has been both better for the patient but also better value for taxpayers' money. We're going to negotiate the first ever fair pay agreement for care workers and start treating them as care professionals that they are. And we'll introduce national standards so that there's consistency across the country. Our ambition over the next decade is to build a national care service. And it's not a shortage of good ideas that's been the problem, it's a shortage of good politics. There is plenty of blame to go around on this. I accept responsibility for Labour's failures, the Conservative Party, the Liberal Democrats, the SNP, all in different ways and to different degrees. We've all failed on this. I think we can work together. And that will be the approach I'll take if the country chooses change on Thursday and I'm the Health and Social Care Secretary on Friday.
Cross-party approach. All right.
I wonder whether maybe Ed Davey is the right person to lead the review.
Well, do you know, Ed? Let me just end on a kind of a note of consensus. Actually, I thought Ed Davey's broadcast during this election campaign was one of the best things that's been put out by any party. It was incredibly moving. And Ed wasn't just talking about his own relationship with his son. I think he was speaking for millions of people out there who rely on social care and don't get the quality of care or the affordable care that they deserve. And I give him total credit for that. And of course, I'd want to work with Ed Davey and people from right across the political spectrum because we've got to build new politics on this.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Wes Streeting.